All right, so I'm out and about this week, and I noticed that people even get anxiety at a four-way stop, not knowing whose turn it is. That's just scratching the surface of the problems that we have here in Florida. If you haven't seen the video, Avoid Moving to Florida Unless You Can Handle These 10 Negatives, well, this is a spin-off of that. This is an update for 2022. So we're going to be talking about avoid moving to Florida because these things are never going to change. We're getting after that next. Hey everybody, my name's Craig Cunha. I'm a real estate agent here in Southwest Florida. If you're looking for a channel to tell you a little bit more about what it's like to live, play, eat, sleep, and buy real estate on the Gulf Coast, this is the channel for you. Go ahead and subscribe, hit the little bell to make sure you're notified every time, and start your search through the MLS by going to ournextfloridahome.com. You can start looking at homes there and getting an idea of exactly what the market's doing. I'm getting calls from people every single day asking me questions about what they've seen on this site, what it's like to move here, and the things they might need to know that they haven't heard yet. If you're one of those people that needs more information, you've got to call, text, or email because I've got your back when moving to the Gulf Coast. All right, so Florida's ranked one of the worst states by some, and there's others that'll fight you tooth and nail to hold up that they're right, that it's an awesome place to live. So it's one of those difficult things that you really do have to delve into, get as much information you possibly can. And I'm hoping that we're going to jump into a few new topics that you may not have heard about or may not have heard as much about that'll help answer some of the questions that are raised when you're considering making a move to Florida. If there's things that you're not hearing in this video or any of the other videos that I've shared previously, go ahead and drop the things that you think are concerns about moving to Florida, and let's just see how many that we can add to this list. Go ahead, list them down below in the comments. Well, one of the top things that you absolutely know you're going to hear about is people. It's possibly the top complaint that we hear is there's too this, there's too that, there's too many, snowbirds suck. There's all these different things about people. All the different attitudes, all the different thought processes, they're coming into our state to change everything. So here's what I'm going to tell you. If you're somebody new to the area, and no, you're not going to find the sandwiches they make up in Chicago down here, and you're not going to find the bagels they have in New York down here. This is Florida. Florida does it differently. Can you find places that are trying to mimic it? Sure, they'll say they're trying to mimic it, but you're not going to get those things because this isn't that area, this isn't that region. So drop those expectations and don't put it on the local people because they are getting to the point where it's getting very difficult accepting all these new people coming to our area. And then on top of being jammed and crowded even further, now they have to hear about how bad it is to be here. They're going to tell you to go home then. The census says there's about 845 people moving here a day. And that number has stayed pretty consistent over the last year or two. So people are constantly coming. And I know people leave too. It's a very transient state. That's just what it is. And this isn't even talking about snowbird traffic. This is talking about people looking for new opportunities or better opportunities than what they currently have. I mean, hell, today alone I talked to 3 or 4 people that want to move to Florida. So it's a constant thing. We are in a situation where there's going to be further demand to be here. We just have to find a way to make it more affordable. And that's one of the topics we're going to be talking about in just a minute. Now, getting back on this topic of the criticizing of things here and how it should be more like home and why isn't it like home? And can't we do this differently so that it's more like my home? No. This is where you broaden your horizons. This is where you came for change. You didn't want to live home anymore. You didn't want to live with whether it's the government policies, whether it's the mask mandates, whether it's just the whole overall thought process of the people that you lived around. Don't bring it here. Don't ask people here to change. It's just not going to go over well. There's a lot of people that are raised here in Florida for many, many years, and they are really not going to want to hear about it. So enjoy the change, grab hold of the culture, and just start enjoying what Florida has to offer. All right, so housing, that's another topic here, and it's the hottest topic of 2022 as far as I can see. And yes, the market is expensive, but expensive is relative. It's relative to whether you grew up here and this is all you know, or did you come from a state that is super wealthy and this looks like peanuts to you. That is the part that we're fighting with, because I just shared with you last week how we're only number 30 out of 50 as far as affordability states. That means we're about halfway. So we're not that unaffordable. And there's only going to be certain things that you're going to see as pointed out as being so. People are going to say the housing's just not affordable. Well, did you ever think that maybe we were underpriced going into this explosion? And maybe this truly is just a leveling out of the market? Because, hell, I don't know, right now I'm seeing a ton of homes that are in the 300,000s. 300,000 is still an affordable home to most states. So if you are looking to move to Florida and you're looking for affordable, we're seeing a lot more of these 300s and 400s than we did previously. So we are seeing a little bit of an adjustment. Maybe it's just people getting realistic for once, instead of trying to shoot for the stars and get the bigger numbers. So if you're still interested in moving to Florida, we can go ahead and look at what your situation is and how this can now fit your life. Rent is one thing I can't tell you boo about, because I just went on to check for a client today about that, and we're still starting at $2,000 a month. This gentleman was saying, hey, Craig, do you think I ought to buy or do you think I ought to rent? And quite honestly, if you're looking at spending $2,000 a month plus on rent and you're going to be here for a couple of years, you're spending tens of thousands of dollars that could go into a mortgage. That's paying into your equity. I don't know. You tell me. It should be something if you're going to stay here for a couple of years. If you're only coming for a year, maybe two, all right, you might be pushing the envelope to purchase a home and flip it that fast. But if you're going to be here for 3, 4, 5 years, and maybe beyond that, it's something you should seriously look at. Now, I just mentioned the rents sitting around that 2,000 mark. Again, this is a relative thing, because you go to Tampa, Miami, Jacksonville, Orlando. Yes, they're bigger cities, but they're also more expensive. And if you don't want to be in a more expensive place, you're going to live in a neighborhood you probably don't want to live in. So there are tons of choices to make. You can also move away from the coast. Go inland. Everything's cheaper inland, and I guarantee that. But you're coming to Florida for a reason. I'm going to say most people want to be close to the water. Most people want to be close to a beach, because the two questions I get is, how long is it going to take me to get to a beach, and how much is to live on the water? That's just what it is. That's Florida in a nutshell. All right, so I received a lot of comments about this next one on the Avoiding Florida video, and why weren't we talking about sinkholes? Well, sinkholes isn't a Florida thing. It's a region of Florida thing. And when I say it's a region, it literally is up in the Tampa, across to Orlando, and goes in a cone shape towards the north, along the coast to the Panhandle. That's where the sinkholes happen. Why is it there? I really don't know. I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to delve into that much information and try to break it down. I'm going to just show you a map that shows where this is happening, and it's kind of a sinkhole alley. Like they have Tornado Alley in the Midwest, well, we have a sinkhole alley, and it's north of us. So Southwest Florida, South Florida, none of it's affected by this. We are a sand-based kind of ground for all of our properties here. That's why we can also drain off all this water quickly. But when it comes to sinkholes, know that this is not a problem for all of Florida. It's just for that one region. All right, so weather patterns are a real deal, and I'm going to touch on this briefly because I know everybody knows about weather in Florida, but I'm going to tell you, you have to take it seriously. Number one, forecasts are pretty accurate. Surprisingly, we make fun of meteorologists all the time, but these guys, they seem to be pretty on it. They're using radar systems that are pretty intense, and the technology they get nowadays is pretty spot on. If you know there's a storm coming a certain time of day, it's usually here that time of day. And the intensity can vary greatly. There was a gentleman the other day that was coming back on a boat from 120 miles out in the Gulf, flying back. He's even flashing his little, hang 10 sign, and then a lightning struck the motor in the back. Boom! That's the kind of stuff that can happen if you don't take it seriously. The lightning's real. People do get struck. People do get killed. There are alarms on the buildings. They will sound when the lightning is within 10 miles, and they will also sound once it's gone. So if you're somebody that is afraid that that could happen to you, don't be holding the golf club out in the lightning on an open field. That's not what you want to do. Find somewhere that has cover. Make sure it's a structure bigger than you so that you're not going to be out in the open. But take this seriously, just like a hurricane. We know they exist. You've heard it 100 times. Hurricanes also, we have a week or so to know when it's coming. Then we'll have countdowns by day as to when it's going to actually hit the area. We'll know what the intensity is for the most part, and we'll know whether we need to get out or stay. So don't be worried about hurricanes. They happen rarely. Our last one that was even of any intensity was years ago with Irma. So rest easy. We do have all the things in place to protect you with the shutters and impact glass windows and all that stuff. In fact, a lot of the new construction nowadays won't even build a home without impact glass. Just one more thing that you can do to protect yourself when in Florida. Now, after these hurricanes pass by, we roll into our winter time and we get a drought. Yeah, that's when everything gets nice and brown, and we are trying to run our sprinklers to keep up with it because there's no humidity, there's no moisture in the air, and everything's drying out. So, we do have seasons in Florida. We just don't have snow. All right, so driving and traffic are always going to be problematic for people like me and maybe like you. People either just don't understand, they don't have any etiquette, or they just don't care. But it's a realistic thing in the area. It happens daily. So I would say practice the patience. Here in this area, you're going to find that people will literally do things just because they see you driving a certain way, or they see that you're impatient. If you're somebody that's zigzagging behind them, switching lanes back and forth, they're probably going to pace with the car next to them to block you from going any further, just because they can. And it doesn't make any sense. You think you slide right, let people by, it would work out really well, but they don't. That's just one of the things to expect when driving. The other thing is, if you're tailgating, that's not a good one either. They'll slow down purposely and make you go as slow as they possibly can. And they may even box you into the car next to them. So now you've created a whole nother issue. This is where road rage happens. This is where people start driving erratically, and this is where accidents happen. And that's why our auto insurance is more expensive. So, you're either going to learn to adapt to this style of driving and be patient, or you're going to have a larger insurance bill. All right, so I'm going to touch this once. I said at the beginning, four-way stops and roundabouts. This is another one that falls under the traffic issue. People just don't understand. They don't get it. You think it should almost be like basic math that you learned in elementary school. Okay, you go, I go, he goes, you go. Whoever shows up first goes first. And if the opposite traffic across from you is going, you go at the same time because the other two can't cross anyway. Pretty basic. Roundabout, first one there gets in the circle, falls around until they fall out. Pretty easy, right? But people are so anxiety ridden and anxious at this intersection, they don't know what to do. And they're literally more frozen than when they cut you off to get the last parking spot under the shady tree in the parking lot. They're more concerned about this than that. So again, rational thinking is not something you're going to find in Florida. People do it on their own accord whenever they feel like it. And that is the reality of living in Florida. So parking can be problematic also in Florida. And we're talking about for events, we're talking for beaches, we're talking for downtown at dinner time, maybe even lunchtime. Some restaurants only have so much limited parking. You will find valet parking in some places. One of our favorite places, we always get the valet to place us. Never an issue, and there's not a lot of parking there. So that's been a blessing. But there's also a lot of timed parking. So if you go down to the beach, you're going to have a 2-hour time limit in a zone. If you're in that zone, do not move the vehicle to another space in the same zone because they're still going to ticket you. You want to know how I know that? Yeah, somebody decided that they were going to move their vehicle to another spot in the same zone, not knowing this rule, and still got slapped with the ticket. So not only I paid for 2 different parking spots, but then I got slapped with the ticket. Don't let that happen to you. Just know that you're going to be on a timer, and this is just a reality of parking in some areas. Outside of this, there's going to be some lots that will charge you $20 for the day. If it's in season or on a holiday, you could be charged as much as $30 or $40 for the day. So keep those things in mind. If parking is a pet peeve, get a boat. Because then you're avoiding all the traffic. If you're not having to cross bridges and you're not having to deal with parking, your boat is going to get you to where you need to go, and you don't have to worry about it. Now, this is just regular traffic and parking in the normal time of the year. Don't even start to think about season. That's going to be ridiculous. We even get to the point that we like to go to our favorite restaurants when it's out of season because in season, the waits of an hour and a half to go eat, that's just not happening. Why would we do that when we have basically the run of the place during the summertime? But just keep that in mind. So season for us, November, December, definitely starts in January full bore, but November, December it can start, and it doesn't end until end of April, beginning of May, sometimes mid-May, depending on the weather up north. Another thing to keep in mind is that little parking pass that I've shown you a couple times. That is a pass. You pay $60 for the year. It will let you park free at marinas and parks throughout Lee County. There's a map that'll show you exactly where you can park, so you can plan for places that you can go without having to deal with these timed meters. Also, I'm going to point out real quick, there's a couple new projects that are coming that they're talking about having paid parking there as well. One of them is the Sanibel Causeway. That is a great natural place to go and hang out, and it's beaches on both sides. Tons of cars jammed in though, and now they figured a way to make money on it. They're going to build parking lots out there and charge you by the hour. Now, jobs are prevalent in Florida, but they may not be exactly what you're looking for. I mean, if you came with a thought process, number one, if you came without a job and no money, you're setting yourself up for a bad situation right from the get-go. But if you're coming with an expectation of making a certain amount of money and having a certain job, once again, don't set yourself up for disappointment. Many people are now remote workers, so it alleviates that problem. Then others are being transferred with their companies, which is awesome. Hey, still some others, they're planning ahead and they're getting the job before they make the move. Once again, kudos, great way to do it. But I will tell you, these job fairs we've been holding lately, and we've got some pretty big companies here, they can't get people to show up to these job fairs. So there's tons of jobs, tons of opportunities, and hell, if you're educated or have experience in a position, you should be making enough money to afford to live here. So figure out the job situation before you make the move, and don't just rely on good fortune to align you once you get here. Now, healthcare is another thing that's said to be bad in Florida, but I'm going to tell you what, I think it just gets a bad rap. And the people that are doing the job, they're getting a bad rap, and they're usually getting a bad attitude, and they're usually getting talked badly to. I happen to know this because I know some people in the healthcare business, and all they put up with all day long is expectations that are unrealistic and expectations that they should be treated like royalty. Now, once again, I'm not saying this is everyone, but we have to understand they are super stressed in the medical field. Look what they've gone through in the last couple years, having to serve people through all this COVID stuff and not having a choice to get out and being covered in all this stuff with the masks and the gowns and the gloves and the glasses. They've got all this stuff going on, and they continue to do this job for us. So where is our appreciation for the healthcare industry? Maybe if we show them a little courtesy and respect, that they'll give it back to us. So anybody complains about the healthcare system, maybe you need to try another doctor, or maybe you just need to go in with a better attitude when you visit them. Now, crime is another thing that is present no matter where you go. I get that. We're not eliminated from it here in Cape Coral either. Of course there's crime. Hell, we had some kids, and I'm talking kids, juveniles, break into a gun shop and steal a bunch of guns. Another kid calls in some kind of a mass shooting at a school. I mean, this is kids. That sounds like more of a parenting problem than it does anything else. But there's been abductions, there's been obviously domestic abuse, stuff like that. But just random attacks on people, that's not really happening. We're not seeing these kinds of things with any regularity. Our police force is present. You will see them on the road constantly. If you're somebody who likes the speed, it doesn't seem like they're really jumping on that so much at this point. But again, they're also building back their forces, trying to be a stronger presence. And if crime is a huge concern, Cape Coral is really not one of the places you're going to experience that kind of crime. We're literally the second safest city in all of Florida with populations over 100,000. So I think you're pretty well off. I've been on this coast now since 2002 and haven't had a single thing happen. Knock on something, some wood. Heck, not even a fender bender. So if you just kind of mind your P's and Q's, just pay attention and be the good person that you want other people to be, and everything will be fine. And for all of you who may not be in favor of guns, then Florida may not be for you. We are the number 2 state of registered weapons in the country. And that's only second to Texas and Chicago. No, not Chicago. That's only second to Texas. So we're at 500,000, roughly just over. Texas is just over 1 million. So those are the top 2 states for registered weapons in these states. And you'll see the brief list here of some different states. The 2 of us are well beyond others. But once again, that's the kind of mentality that's here. We just want to look out for our rights, our freedoms. So if you're one of those people, then you're going to love living in Florida. But if you're not, once again, Florida might not be for you. All right, so that's a little bit more about avoid moving to Florida, because these things are not going to change. If you have other questions about moving to Florida or living in Florida, check out one of these other videos. And if you've got a specific question that you need an answer to, you've got to call, text, or email, because I've got your back when moving to the Gulf Coast.